Thank you, random helicopter. Awesome. What's up, everybody? This is Scott. Welcome back to another video. So I want to compare the 4A versus the OnePlus 8T. On paper, look, this thing isn't even close. It should be OnePlus 8T all day long. However, when you get into the price point and really what you get for the value, that's where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. So let's talk about that. On the OnePlus 8T, you're looking at 120 hertz refresh rate, great battery, outstanding performance, Oxygen OS with Android 11, which honestly, Oxygen OS is my second favorite behind the Pixel when it comes to the skin on Android. 65 watt charging. Again, I mentioned that 120 hertz refresh rate on the screen. A beautiful phone with great battery life. Quad camera setup on it, which honestly, it's not really quad camera because that macro lens is on both of those. So really, that's where the OnePlus device truly is. The price point is $750, whereas if you flip over to the Pixel 4a, 6 gigs of RAM, again, 1080p on the screen, which is the same out of the OnePlus. You have the hole punch design, single camera shooter on the back, 1080p, 30 frames a second out of both of these on the front facing camera, 6 gigs of RAM, and again, price point of $350, so half the cost of the OnePlus 8T. Now I want to show you, what does the OnePlus 8T versus the Pixel 4a look like? Shooting right now, 1080p, 30 frames a second, left hand on a switch pod. Which one looks better from a stabilization perspective? At first glance in camera, I gotta go from a stabilization perspective with OnePlus. The colors perspective, definitely, in my personal opinion, gonna go the 4a. There's actually blue in this sky, whereas on the OnePlus, looks nothing but white, so completely blown out. There is blue in that sky. See if I can turn it. There we go, there's blue in that sky there. You turn to the OnePlus and start walking this way, not a bit of blue there, but even when you shift, there's definitely blue there. So OnePlus has a bit of a white balance problem. Now let's flip this around and talk about the back camera on these. Now this is currently 4K, 30 frames a second out of both of these. How does the stabilization look? Let's turn around and go this direction. In camera, I gotta be honest with you, the colors look significantly better on the OnePlus 8T. The grass looks good. Honestly, if you look at the grass here, between how green the OnePlus, so here, this green grass right here, it's not quite that green in real life, but it is definitely better looking than the Pixel 4a has right now. It's not that dead looking from the Pixel 4a perspective. So let's take a peek at the stabilization here. Let's walk this way a little bit. Have a look at that stabilization. Both very, very good. Got to give a slight edge to the OnePlus 8T on this. Not a lot, but definitely got to give an edge to it. So from a color perspective, it's definitely more flattering from a color perspective in the OnePlus 8T in camera. It's not quite that dead looking in Ohio on the 4A, I suppose. The cool thing about the OnePlus 8T is you have the ability to go ultra wide. I don't have that, so this is the ultra wide 4K 30 frames a second on the OnePlus 8T, whereas I don't have that ability to do that in the Pixel 4a. One other thing you have the ability to do in the 4a is actually 2x zoom. And now let's go 2x zoom and take a look at this stabilization. Again, I gotta go stabilization. Again, I'm just holding in a switch pod. Gotta go to the stabilization on this one. OnePlus 8T all day from a stabilization perspective. Doesn't mean that the 4a is bad, just means it's really, really good. Now let's switch back to 1X. Let's turn this thing around. Now let's try 4K 60 frames a second. Now, one thing I'm gonna tell you, in the OnePlus 8T, 4K 60 frames a second, you're gonna notice that you should have tremendous amounts of detail better in the OnePlus 8T because this is truly 4K. Whereas on the Google Pixel 4, this is 1080p 60 frames a second because the 4A does not have the ability to do 4K 60 frames a second in the Pixel 4a. The stabilization still looks good. The stabilization not as good in 4K 60 frames a second. In my previous videos with the 4a 5G and the Pixel 5, that pretty much demolished from a stabilization perspective the OnePlus 8T. Didn't mean it was like super bad and like just means that it was really not as good as it should have been in comparison to the 4a 5G or the Pixel 5. Now that we've talked about the video on the back, which in my opinion, I gotta lean towards the 8T, which doesn't really surprise me. It has so much more hardware in that compared to the 4A 5G. And I would expect that because that device is twice the price. So let's keep some things in perspective here. The OnePlus 8T is $750. Not a bad price, definitely not. But the Pixel 4a is $350. It is, in my opinion, still gotta be, if it's not the device of the year, it is pretty darn close to the device of the year because you get a tremendous amount of value for that $350. But the OnePlus 8T is no slouch either. Really where you start to see the gap closing between these two devices is in the point and shoot. So let's jump in, take a look at some of these photos out of both of these, and then we'll come right back and talk about it. So there you see some of the shots out of both the OnePlus 8T and the 4A. So I gotta be honest with you, point shoot, I'm still picking the Pixel 4A because take a look at that shot where I'm standing out in the middle of the field, that portrait shot. Look at the color of my skin with the 8T. Now, I'm as white can go, no question about that. But the color of my skin is in fact so white, I'm basically clear, and I'm not that clear. I'm more dark, less clear, something like that. Yeah, it suffers from a really bad white balance problem, and that's probably where the biggest thing for me is when you have the lighting right and it's good. The OnePlus 8T is fantastic for a device, but I have trust issues, and because I have those trust issues, I have to lean more towards the Pixel 4a because statistically more often than not, I'm going to get that shot. And I would argue that a lot of people are going to be that way. So what I will say kind of in closing from this perspective, if you're a gamer or you're somebody who needs a tremendous amount of performance, 5G, great battery life, and you care a little bit less about the cameras than I do, OnePlus is a fantastic device. I gotta be honest with you because it is just a powerhouse. I've loved using it. The thing is a battery sipper like the Pixels. I'm so excited to see folks like Google and OnePlus really pay attention to the battery life because I think that that's probably one of the #1 things most consumers need, especially going to 5G. So I love the fact that these companies are paying attention to battery life. And you can't go wrong with the OnePlus 8T, that's for sure. $750, that is a heck of a deal for a powerhouse device. Anywhere between 8 and 12 gigs of RAM, it has never slouched at all in terms of performance. It barely has a problem chugging along. So if you're into something like that, that's not gonna hurt you in the least. However, let's go to that 4A. The 4A is no performance slouch either. Yes, is it gonna be as good from all this crazy gaming and things you make like PUBG and all the other jazz? Look, the OnePlus 8T is gonna crush it from a performance perspective. But if you're less into that and you kind of care about your photos or you just need an all-around great device for a fantastic price, you're not going to be disappointed with the 4A. $350, that is a freaking steal. Great video, great photos, still not a slouch when it comes to performance. Battery life, champ. And yeah, I absolutely love using both of these devices. For me, because I use it a lot for photos and videos, I'm definitely leaning towards the 4A. Take a look at this shot right here. I'm not moving. Same lighting. Look at the color of my face. I'm not this white. I'm not clear. I'm not clear. And this is why I go 4A when it comes to this. But that's it. That's all I have. You can't go wrong with either. Leave a comment below on which one you prefer or which one you would choose if you were going to spend anywhere between $350, $750. So that's it. That's all I have. Thanks for watching. And as always, like, share, subscribe, thumbs up. Leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.